Hope everybody can see my screen. And welcome to the 9th virtual meeting of the Nassau County REIA. Before COVID, we were meeting once a month in Valley Stream, and then once a month at a project I was working on. And we're trying to meet twice a month virtually, and we're going to try and deal with different issues each month and try and give you as much information as you can. Today we have a quick presenter, also someone who's been here before. So this is our 9th virtual meeting. So talking about today's agenda, the first 2 minutes, I'm just going to introduce myself. I should cut that down. Next 3 minutes, I'm going to tell you what's going on in the market in my business. We're going to have 5 minutes, a quick presentation by Stephen Moskowitz of RD Advisors. He's a hard money lender. And then 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about estimating repairs. This is really part 1 of 2. At the next meeting, I'm going to deal with interior repairs. And on this one, we're going to deal with exterior and mechanical systems. A lot of people have issues with that. I wish it was easier to teach, but I'm going to try and give you a lot of useful information on how I do it and what kind of things you can really on what you should do and what you shouldn't do. The last 5 minutes will be about talking how I can help you. We'll have questions and answers. You can ask questions on anything. It doesn't have to be something that we discuss now. It can be any question you have. And feedback until 7. I'll go to 7:30, but in the past, I've noticed it only lasts about an hour. So first, who am I? My name is Michael Pinter. I bought my first house in Long Island in 1996. I've been a full-time real estate investor since 2013. I was part-time for many years while I worked in the mortgage business. I was in the mortgage business for 17 years. I call that real estate finance. The first 4 years that I was investing, I bought at live auctions, online auctions from REO, that's real estate owned brokers, and I got rehabbed every single property I bought. We're going to talk more about that later. And then the last almost 5 years, I've been marketing direct to sellers and rehabbing or wholesaling and wholetailing, which we'll talk a little bit more about what that means. I mean, basically, when I close on the property, I rehab or wholetail it. And wholesaling is when I just assign the contract, right? If I could assign every contract, I would, but sometimes it doesn't work for various reasons. My office is in Hewlett. Please come by to see it if you want to. I'm right near the Hewlett train station. I operate in Nassau and Suffolk, but I'm really trying to narrow it down to Nassau if I can. I did over 45 deals last year, with about half of them where I didn't close. I just assigned it to another investor, and the other half where I closed and either did nothing to it and sold it, or did very little work to it and sold it, or sometimes did major work to it and sold it. Okay, so it's a recap, the first 15 months of the Nassau County REIA, just to tell you how this REIA has helped people who want to be in the business, who are in the business. More than 70 members have visited my office. Everyone is invited. You can come. You can see the board. You can see the deals I'm working on. You can talk to me about any help that I can give you. There are a bunch of REIA members who have brought deals to me, and I co-wholesaled with them, and we worked a split of the profits. Several members have bought wholesale deals from me. Several members have borrowed from me on their flips if they needed cash. Okay, so we'll talk about the current real estate market situation. So obviously, no one thinks that COVID was a good thing. 170,000 people died in the country, but this is going to become a tremendous opportunity for real estate investors, without a doubt. I had a completely worthless, really February, March, April, and May. Business has absolutely picked up in June, July, and August. July was one of my best months ever. August is looking great, and it happened with minimal marketing, very little. I have some cold callers, but I really haven't invested in data. I just put a payment down for data that I'm getting later, and I'm going to start heavy marketing soon. I could not really market just in those months of COVID. Marketing was not working. People were extremely, people were fearful for their lives. They weren't interested in talking about their house. And I had 11 deals that I had to sell that I couldn't sell. I've sold 7 of them. I still have 3 more. I'm closing on 1 tomorrow. So getting rid of all these things through COVID has been a pain. But business has been amazing. I usually do 7 to 8 transactions a month. That's 3 or 4 buys and 3 or 4 sells. August, also no marketing. It's been great. I'm looking at my board. I mean, just in August, I picked up, I think, $200,000 in potential profit on deals. Most of them are wholesale deals. I had a great showing yesterday in Locust Valley. Had about 30 investors show up, and I got a full asking price offer just now. I'm going to send out the assignment docs right now. Business has been great, really great. But I'm sure the market's going down soon. Now, I don't know soon. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe it'll take 3 years. I don't really care. But to me, I don't see a situation where the market doesn't go down. There are hundreds of billions of dollars that are gone from the economy. The whole hospitality industry, cruise, hotels, conventions, travel, cruises, airlines, food service, restaurants, suppliers, anybody who supplies those industries, these guys are getting slaughtered. There are huge numbers of jobs that are gone and are not coming back for a long time, right? The economy is going to be bad for a while. It's a crazy situation, right? Many people until a couple of weeks ago were collecting much more in unemployment or getting paid just because it was free for employers if they had got a PPP loan. I got a PPP loan. I paid people in March and April who were doing nothing, but it was free. In fact, I had to pay them in order to get the loan forgiven. But this all ended 2 weeks ago. Unemployment's over. Now, there may be more stimulus bills or things happening soon, but that's a Band-Aid. Could only hold on for so long. The economy is going to get slaughtered, and those are a lot of people who wanted to buy houses. So what's going on? I mean, look at just Manhattan. This was from August 14th. 8% of employees are back in Manhattan. That's 1.2 million people that work in Manhattan. So think about all the industries that service those people. Think about people who clean offices. Think about restaurants. Think about all the services for the 1.2 million people that worked in Manhattan. Those people don't have jobs. They're done, right? You can't make up 92% of a lack of demand. This is what's going on. It's a crazy situation. And people just think that the real estate market is going to stay strong. I don't see how it can. Now, I'm going to ride it for as long as it's worth, but the market's got to go down. So we have a quick presentation of Stephen Moskowitz. Now, Steve called me from RD Advisors. So they are a hard money lender who was lending in Massachusetts mostly, even though part of the company is based in New York. And I asked Steve, I get a lot of calls from lenders, right? I probably get calls 2 or 3 lenders every week. And most of them do exactly the same thing. And I basically tell them I'm set. I have my lenders and I am not interested in new lenders. But when I got talking to Steve, I realized he does something that other people don't do. So just to give you a basic gist of what's going on in the hard money space, hard money 10 years ago used to be really an asset-based loan. They couldn't care less about the borrower. And what they would do is look at the deal. And if the deal was good, they would lend it. But it's shifted over the last 10 years to where a lot of companies, even companies who are called asset-based lenders, really are looking at borrowers a lot. They're checking credit and they want to see experience. And almost every lender today is either not going to lend you if your credit isn't great or is not going to lend you if you can't show experience, or they'll lend you much less. Steve right now in New York is lending completely based on the deal. So he's not pulling credit for people, and he's not looking at your experience level. If a deal makes sense, Steve wants to do it. So Steve, I'm going to let you talk now. I can let you be the presenter if you want to click on present. You are presenting, and you can talk for a couple of minutes. And I think it's really unique that there's somebody out there who's back to lending based on the deal. Steve, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, how are you?
Okay, so can I make you the presenter? I don't know.
That'd be nice.
Okay, I think I can. No, I'm still presenting. Pin to screen. I'm trying to make you the presenter.
I was going to talk about the importance of being able to use technology today. So I guess
sure. Steve, you go. You talk. I'll try and get. I'm going to stop presenting, and then when you talk, I think you will become the presenter.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So thank you for having me again, Michael. I presented a few weeks ago to the Nassau REIA and have the privilege again presenting tonight. Nice to meet everybody, and hope everyone is doing well and staying healthy. As Michael said, these are absolutely extraordinary times, unprecedented, certainly in our generation, and certainly since I've been alive. So, tremendous volatility in the markets, I think, heading into the election, and a lot of distress starting to creep into the real estate market, as Michael mentioned, in hotels, retail, office, which, thank God, knock on wood, we didn't lend to over the last couple of years. We've always been more focused on the 1 to 4 unit residential, as well as multifamily, industrial, and some mixed use. So our portfolio,
Let me mute.
So our portfolio, kind of knock on wood, has held up pretty well, all things considered. As Michael mentioned, we are focused on 1 to 4 unit rehab projects, so acquisition and rehabilitation loans, as well as refinancings, select ground up construction projects with more experienced developers, as well as commercial loans for mostly multifamily, mixed use, and industrial, anything over 5 units. And those are, again, typically short-term loans for acquisition and rehabilitation for non-stabilized properties. In order to stabilize them, we usually end up getting refied out with a bank, or if they're condo conversions, typically the condos sell. We've done detached, we've done multifamily. And as Michael was saying, most of our originations are in Boston as well, and is in the tri-state area. And obviously, due to COVID, as everybody's aware, there's been a massive shift away from cities, which was a long-term trend of young professionals moving towards cities. And obviously, COVID has reversed that trend in a pretty sharp way. And so we're seeing just absolutely tremendous demand for detached single-family homes in all the markets we're lending in: Boston, Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, Columbus, Ohio, greater Boston area, obviously Nassau County, northern New Jersey. All these markets, what I continuously am hearing from borrowers is not that much inventory. People are bidding up prices, people are overbidding on properties, and obviously making it harder to find deals. For us, what we're seeing is a lot of our competitors that were relying upon the secondary markets for liquidity, so essentially selling all their loans to correspondent lenders and relying upon Wall Street to purchase their loans and almost acting as brokers, have fallen on harder times. And because of that, and because we always had our own balance sheets, we're lending family off money, and we always had stability in that way, we've been able to lend throughout COVID and take advantage of some of the market dislocation, some of the lenders going away. So, and we think that on a go-forward basis, nobody has a crystal ball, but as Michael was alluding to, with some of the distress in the economy, Q4, Q1, once the moratoriums on the foreclosures and the forbearances expire, we do think that there will be a substantial amount of product that's going to hit the market, and hopefully create more product on the supply side for investors to flip. Because right now, obviously, that's incredibly difficult with all of the forbearances. So nobody knows exactly when these things are going to expire. There's a lot of uncertainty around the election. Obviously, the stock market is at all-time highs. Real estate is skyrocketing, and especially in certain markets, certainly on the residential side, not the commercial markets I mentioned. So it'll be an interesting time. And for us, we've actually seen a huge pickup in demand. We're getting a lot of deal flow, a lot of refinancings. Actually just saw an article today from Adam Data that I think it's like 2/3 of all real estate loans were refinancings or something like crazy like that. So a lot of refis and some new deals as well. But I know a lot of people are having a hard time finding product right now. So we're hoping that on a go-forward basis, that picks up. In terms of our program, we're actually getting 2 new credit lines in place over the next couple of weeks, which will allow us to reduce our cost of capital. So right now we're lending up to 80% of the purchase price, 100% of the rehab, up to 70% of the ARV. Our loans start at $200,000, typically go up to just under the jumbo limit, depending on the state. So $800,000, $900,000 per single unit. And our rate pre-COVID were 9 to 12%. Over the last couple of months, we've done a lot of deals at 12, and over the next couple of months, we're going to be lowering that back down to under 10% again. So, that's a little bit on us. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but we are very focused on Nassau County Island generally, and always looking to meet new borrowers. So, as Michael said, we don't have FICO minimums, and we do not have experience requirements. If it is somebody's first time deal, we do like to see them working with an experienced contractor or another partner that's been in the business for a while, and make sure their statement of work makes sense and they have a real exit plan, but we don't have work. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Stephen? If not, I will proceed. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. I put Steve's put Steve's information in the chat if anybody wants. Can people see my screen? Yes? Richard Gibson, I can see you. Can you see my screen? Can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, great. So today's topic is estimating repairs for wholesaling or rehabbing, right? And I'm going to do this in two parts because I could literally talk about this for 6 hours and I don't want to keep everybody here till midnight. So really, estimating repairs is not easy to teach because every house and even every room is different, right? I can't tell you how much a kitchen costs because there are kitchens that'll cost me $8,000 and kitchens that'll cost me $48,000. Every contractor is different, right? So I can't really give you a price because my contractor is going to be cheaper, could be cheaper than your contractor, could be more than your contractor. And the big thing is what you decide to do or not do varies. What I'm going to try to do today is talk about deciding what to do and what not to do, because that's something that I completely changed. I completely shifted on this topic, and I'm very adamant that I am right and that everybody else is wrong on this. So we're going to talk about today just the exterior and the mechanical systems of a house, right? Part two will be the interior, which really is more important and more complicated. I'll do that in 2 weeks at our next meeting. But let's talk about what the exterior consists of. That's the roof, the windows, the fascia, which is the material on the outside of the property, the garage, and the mechanical systems are the heating, air conditioning, the plumbing, and the electrical systems. Let's talk about that. These are really important because if you are going to rehab a property, this is something that a building inspector is going to notice, any of the things I'm talking to you about. And if you're wholesaling a property, it's something that the person who's rehabbing is going to have to take care of. So deciding what work to do and what not to do is not easy, right? I would say when I was doing major rehabbing, I was doing as many as 15, 16 properties at a time. Deciding what to do is really the hardest part. And for the last 10 years, what has been happening, and I didn't pick up on it right away, is that the gap between prices for perfect houses, I'm talking about like a 10 out of 10, great house, 9 or a 10 or 10, and for passable houses, which are like a 4 or 5 out of 10, has been narrowing. This happened because really for 12 years, prices have been going up. So people got priced out of houses. So I'll give you an example. I did a lot of capes in Valley Stream and Elmont. And when I started doing them, $400,000 was what we were going to sell these for. But as time passed by, couldn't buy a cape anymore for $400,000. But there were people who still wanted them for $400,000, and they would take them even if they weren't in such great shape. So when I say passable, I mean that you can get a mortgage on it, that everything works, and that the roof doesn't leak, that kind of thing. That's not what we're really going to be talking about here. But it's important when we talked about wholesaling, that's really what that means. But I gut rehab every house, right? I thought I wanted to be Tarek El Moussa from Flip or Flop. I wanted open concept. I was an imbecile, right? Because I spent a lot of money doing things that didn't need to be done. And 5 years ago, I completely changed my paradigm and I shifted, and the way I look at every house changed, and it helped me significantly. So I look at every house now to see how little work I can do. How much can I get away with not doing, right? And it's, we all think it's going to be simple, right? We think we're going to buy a house. It's going to be a complete shithole, that nothing's going to work in the house. Everything's going to be a disaster, and everything has to go. It's a gut job. It's a knockdown, that kind of thing. But that's not usually what happens, right? You get a house, and there's a kitchen in it that was done 18 years ago. There are things that were done 20 years ago, and you have to decide whether that's something to keep or something to get rid of. So when I got rehab houses, what I realized is that whatever you think is necessary could be the first thing the buyer undoes. So let me give you a couple of examples. I used to open up the first floor on capes so that when you walked in, you saw the living room, the eating area, and the kitchen. It made it feel bigger and brighter. And again, I thought I was on HGTV. I can tell you on several occasions that buyers came to me and said, the first thing we're doing is we're putting up a wall on this kitchen. And I was like in shock. I go, what do you mean? So I remember one guy was an Indian guy who told me I cook with curry and I need a door because it's going to stink up the house. I had another guy tell me I'm putting up a wall because I want more cabinets. So many times the things that you do that you think are absolutely necessary is the first thing a buyer is going to undo. So by doing it because you think it looks good or because you think it's necessary, it may not be the right thing. I mean, sometimes we would spend $10,000 opening a load-bearing wall where we had to put up posts and a header and get a permit for it, and then the buyer would put up a wall after. The truth is, you can always do more work, right? If that's the feedback you get from buyers. It's never happened that I've decided to go, let's say, a light renovation, and a buyer has come to me and said, I would buy this house if you do X, Y, and Z. It's never really happened. Maybe I need to repair something, but you can always do more work. You can't do less work once you do it. The key really is pricing a house on the lower end of the scale, right? So when I first did this, I always felt like my houses were going to be the nicest houses, and therefore I'm going to get the most money for them. But the truth is, pricing your, so let me give you another example. So I recently had a property, where is it? Oh, so 11 Shore Place in Hempstead. So it's a house that I bought. It took a long time to evict. The guy did pay some rent. I'm hopefully closing next week on it after a while. But I could have done work to it and priced it at $450, maybe even $460. I didn't really touch it. I didn't do anything to it. And I put it out at $380, $390. I think we sold it for $390. We're in contract for $390. So I'm a big believer in pricing it low. Pricing is by far the number one way you're going to communicate with buyers. So if you can avoid doing work that's going to allow you to price things on the lower end of the market, you're going to do better. You're going to sell things quicker. You're going to have less problems. It's going to be a much better place for you to be. The idea that you're going to price things at the absolute top of the market is usually a mistake for a few reasons. First of all, that top can go down, and I think it is going to go down at some point. If you're lower, you're going to get more people to come. You can sell it for above asking. I have absolutely priced many houses below what I thought I could sell them for and sold them for higher. So less work means less surprises. Every time you open a wall, there could be a surprise, right? Your guy breaks a pipe. You find out there's termite damage behind the wall. You find out something's not insulated. You find out the electrical system sucks. You find out the plumbing system has got a problem. Things that you wouldn't even known if you didn't do the work. Less surprises, less time. Obviously, if you do less work, less time, less money, and less problems, right? The biggest issue that I had when we were doing a lot of properties was managing contractors and managing jobs. And I can tell you, when we were doing over 15 jobs, we probably had 6 contractors doing the work. It was an absolute nightmare, and it's very hard. Now, if you want to rehab and you want to do a job, 1 or 2 jobs a year, it's very manageable, right? Anybody can go start rehabbing, buy a property from me or any other wholesaler, make $40,000 to $60,000 on it. Anybody can do that, as long as you have some money involved to put up the gap funding. So anybody can really become a rehabber and do part-time rehab and make $100,000 next year. Anybody. It's not hard. But when you want to juggle multiple deals, it's very hard. And for me, it was really bad. So I changed the way I thought about houses. I said, we're going to do less work, and it's been a godsend to me. Really been great. So when we're talking about estimating repairs now, I'm really going to show you why I think, why doing less work is really a recipe for being a happier real estate investor. So let's talk about what work is necessary if you want to actually sell it to an end buyer for a good price, or you want to figure out what work is necessary for a rehabber that you're going to wholesale to. Now, remember, so let's take yesterday's showing. I did a showing yesterday. On that house, I know I can make that house in great shape for 40 grand. But people came in and said this is a $120,000 job. And it could be, right? It could be a $400,000 job. I mean, you could spend whatever you want on it. Very often. So on that deal, I was telling people they need $60,000 worth of work. I know I can do it for 40. So this is the work that's necessary to do if you're doing the rehab. But understand, if you're wholesaling it to another guy, he may do everything and cost a lot more. But what has to be right for you to get a good price for a house, right? An ARV in the ARV range, after repaired value range. So first of all, the outside fascia has to be clean, has to be okay, right? That's whether it's siding, whether it's brick, whatever the hell it's made out of. The roof has to be leak-free. All the windows should be double-paned windows. They have to stay open when you lift them up, and they have to lock close when they're down. and all the mechanical systems have to work. Those are the areas we're going to talk about today. For the next meeting, part 2, really the only things that matter in the house are the kitchen and the bathrooms, the flooring, and the walls. That's it. It's not that much inside, not that many things inside. Now, obviously, there's a lot involved in kitchen and bathrooms, but we're going to deal with that at the next meeting in 2 weeks. So let's talk about these parts, the exterior and the mechanical system. So the fascia, that's the material on the outside of the house, whether that's vinyl siding, whether it's brick, whether it's stucco, whether it's shingles, right? Now, ideally, every house would be brick, stucco, or have new vinyl sidings, right? And again, we all think that we're going to go and we're going to buy some real crapper of a house. Well, it's got fire damage, and we're going to have to do the outside. But very often, you're going to buy a house, and it's going to have, let's say, old, like aluminum siding, or they have. I bought houses where it's, I don't even know if it's aluminum, but it's some kind of metal where it looks like a shingle, but you give it a knock and it freaking dings like it's made out of steel. So very often those are the things that are going to happen. So the first thing is you have an ugly color. You might buy a house that's yellow or pink. I bought those. You just paint the outside. Now you need somebody who paints the outside who knows what they're doing. It's got to be a special paint. It's an oil-based paint, an exterior paint. But if there are no major holes or serious problems, almost all fascia can be transformed by painting it. Right? I painted almost every single type of fascia. I painted brick. I've removed paint from brick. I've done all kinds of things. Paint will make a house look completely different. And painting's not expensive. Usually the exterior of a house, you can paint for $2,000, $3,000, depending on the size. New vinyl siding rarely pays for itself. Now, I know rehabbers that put new vinyl siding on every house. Vinyl siding is really expensive. It probably costs $8,000 to $12,000. It's very expensive. Does it look great? It does. But are you going to get another $10,000 more for a house for new vinyl siding versus painting the old siding? I don't think so. I really don't. If you painted a good color, it's going to look great. So understand, it has to look okay. It doesn't have to look perfect. Now let's start with the roof. So ideally, every roof should be less than 15 years old with architectural shingles. Architectural shingles are the shingles you see. You can tell the newer shingles that they go above each other. I did a roof about 6 years ago where the guy did the tri-tab shingles, which are the flat shingles. I almost had a heart attack. In the end, I didn't sell the house for any less than I thought I would. But I see people all the time going in and just replacing roofs. It's not the smart move, right? If the roof is leak-free, I wouldn't replace it, even if it looks old, right? Sometimes roofs get dirty. If there are trees over it, you can power wash them and get it looking clean. You're usually better off having the buyer have his home inspection, where the home inspector will say something asinine like expected remaining lifetime of the roof is 5 years, something like that. And they'll say, what are you going to do about the roof? Now, I'll always get a quote on the roof if something like that happens. I have a great roofer. He's not that cheap, but he's great. And I recently had a situation. He gave me a quote. New roof was going to be like $8,000 or $9,000. So I went back to the buyer. I'll give you $2,000 credit, and they were thrilled. And I really believe on their end they're not going to touch that roof until they need it. Like, that roof might be leak free for 20 years. You never know, right? The inspectors put stupid things like expected remaining economic life. Just a guess. So I wouldn't do a roof unless you have to. Now, if there's a leak in the roof, so I'm selling a house tomorrow in Bayshore on Thompson, where the guy told me it was an old leak. I was a putz for believing him. I replaced the sheetrock on the second floor, and then it rained and it leaked again. I had to repair the roof, right? Half the roof I had to replace, and it cost me $8,000. I did not expect to spend, but you can't have any leaks in a roof ever. So I knew I had to spend it. It wasn't a question of whether I was going to do it. The roof has to be leak free, but short of that, even if it's missing shingles, it's not that hard to even find replacement shingles and put them up there. You don't want to replace a roof unless you have to. Now, what you're going to see, and I didn't even get into it here, is that some roofs have multiple layers of shingles on it. So you're allowed 3 layers of shingles. If you see 3 layers of shingles, it means you're going to have to rip the roof off. If there's only 1 layer of shingles, sometimes you can get away with just laying a layer of shingles on top of it. And again, I would only do that if you have to, but you can. I don't lay a 3rd layer on, but I'll lay a 2nd layer on if I have to, if it saves me money. All right, so I'm trying to get some questions first. Richard Gibson, I'm going to talk about your question and the assignment soon. Naman is asking, do these rules of thumb mostly apply for a specific market value area? No, these rules of thumb apply everywhere, and I'm going to talk about why soon. Okay, next are windows. So ideally, all windows have been replaced in the last 20 years. They haven't made single pane windows in more than 20 years. Vinyl white replacement windows are absolutely fine. Old single pane windows, right, where there's one pane of glass could be an issue. Really, it depends on where they are. If they're in the front of a house and it's a busy street, those are really going to allow a lot of noise into the house. Depends how old they look, if they work. You have to decide, right? I'm doing a house now in Mastic Beach, and there's just a horrible, horrible window right when you walk in. So today, we got new windows. We're putting them in. But there's a crappy window that faces the back on one of the bedrooms. I'm not dealing with that. If I have to, I will, but I don't expect not to deal with it. Windows in the front of the house are more important than the back of the house is what people are going to see, or the sides of the house. Most windows can be repaired. So I have repair guys for vinyl replacement windows. I have repair guys for Anderson windows. So what happens a lot is you get in there and like there's 4 windows that need to be, that have like a broken pane, or they won't stay open, or they won't lock closed. You need to repair them. But you know, it's $100-200 to repair a bunch of windows. Not that bad. But the windows have to work and they have to be relatively new. Now, I'm talking about mechanical systems, right? So ideally, all the systems, the heating, electrical, plumbing, and AC will have been replaced in the last 15 years, right? But all systems must be in working order. They all have to work. However, and I used to do this, and I was a moron for doing this, you do not need to convert oil burners to gas. Okay? The idea that oil is this devil and that gas is the greatest thing is foolish. First of all, tons of houses in Long Island don't have access to gas, right? They might have propane, they may not. So when I first started doing these gut rehabs and I saw an oil burner, I would take it out. After a while, then I remember what happened. I bought a house and I had a brand new oil burner. I mean, you could eat off it. It was so new. And I said, let me try and sell it with oil. And guess what? It sold for the exact price I thought it would sell for. Richard, talk about window wall AC units, replace, remove, patch opening. No, any window wall AC unit I leave. I don't get it. That it always it's a nightmare. I'm selling a house now in Elmont where they had 2 wall units. They took them out, and I can't match the fascia on the outside, and they're asking me to do that. I never would do that. It's very hard to patch an opening unless you have the exact match to whatever the outside fascia is. I leave them. If it's a window units, we'll talk about AC soon. So you don't need to convert oil burners to gas. If it's you don't need to replace all the boilers and the water heaters. I see people do that all the time. Something works and they go, oh, it needs to be new. When I did the first 4 years, I used to pull out these things and I used to put up a Navian combi boiler. It's like this box, goes up on a wall. It's a tankless system. It looks amazing, but the truth is, I probably wasted a ton of money on it. If the boiler works and it's not huge, and we'll get into more of that soon, you can leave the boiler. And you don't need to upgrade all electrical panels to 200 amps. That's a BS thing that people think. On a small house like a Cape or a smaller ranch, 100 amps is fine, right? If it's a huge house, a big house, and we'll talk about other things later. You may not need to install central air conditioning, right, unless it's a very high-end area where every property has it. But if it's there, it needs to work. And the house I'm doing in Hempstead now, in short, had a unit, didn't work, have an FHA appraisal. Appraiser said it's got to work. I was so pissed off. I figured none of the houses nearby have it. But I just spent $2,800 to replace the unit. Shakespeare asks, can aluminum siding be painted? Absolutely. Pretty much anything on the outside can be painted. Okay. So let's talk about heating. So boilers are not water heaters. Boilers shouldn't, no, listen, old boilers are huge. I had one in my house when I bought it that was as big as a car. I mean, it was tremendous. So if they're huge and it looks like a monster, you got to get rid of it because it just screams that this thing's going to break down one day and somebody's going to be responsible for it. But if they're relatively small and they work properly, you can usually get away with keeping them. Sometimes they just look dirty and they need to be just cleaned, wiped clean. A lot of older houses don't have hot water heaters, right? And people say, oh, I need a separate hot water heater. I would avoid installing a new one, right? They work on a coil off the boiler. I wouldn't get into it. I leave it. Let the buyer put that in. Radiators or baseboard heaters that are in rooms giving off heat, they should look okay, right? They can't be rusty and crappy. They may need to be just painted or new covers installed. But, I used to do major work on here. Every time you start with these things, it ends up being more than you anticipate. Let's talk about electrical. So if you have any fuses, I'm talking about either screw fuses or pull fuses. I thought I was on Do Not Disturb. Sorry. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, so sorry. So if there are any fuses or there's no main switch, you may have to upgrade the electrical panel, right? You need a circuit breaker panel that's got a main switch. A lot of the older ones did not have main switches. They just had individual circuits. If there is a main switch and no fuses anywhere, not on a sub panel, you probably don't have to upgrade the electrical panel. Do not think just because it's 100 amps or 150 amps. I see rehabbers making this stupid mistake all the time. They go in first, they go, oh, we're going to upgrade the panel. It's like $3,000 to upgrade a panel, $4,000. It's a stupid thing. I don't know one person who didn't buy a house because they didn't warrant enough amps, right? Now, but back on the other topic with gas, there are people who won't buy a house because it doesn't have gas, but there's plenty of people who don't give a crap. And same thing with this. Are there people out there who won't buy a house because it doesn't have 200 amps? Maybe, but there's enough people that you don't have to worry about them. And it's certainly not necessary for a small house. For the capes that I did, you know, the standard 4.2 capes with no attic, some that had a basement, 100 amps is absolutely enough amps. All the switches and the outlets need to be functioning properly. You can't have them not working. But you can replace switches and outlets with brand new ones that look great without doing the wiring behind the wall. And you need GFCI, that's ground fault circuit interrupt. That's the outlets that have their little circuit breaker on them above anything near water. So all kitchens and bathrooms need to have those. Again, they're easy to replace, not a big deal. Okay, air conditioning. So if there is central AC needs to work, like I just told you, on 11 Short Place, I was shocked, but FHA appraiser made me replace the unit and get air conditioning working. And it has air conditioning now, great. It's $2,800 less out of my pocket, but that's the way it works. Now, if there's no central air conditioning and it's hot, I'll bring window units into, and there are no window units or wall units in a house, I'll bring in window units when I show the property, because people are going to remember how they feel when they get into that property. And if it's an oven, you do not want them to come into an oven. You want them to be comfortable when it's hot. So I have a bunch of window units that I rotate from different houses I'm showing if I need them. But you got to really look at based on the competition on other houses. You might need to determine if you have to install central air conditioning. I did a deal in Franklin Square that we sold for $700,000. Every single comp had central air. I did a central air in there. It wasn't cheap, but I did it because I knew that I had to compete with all the other ones. And one zone is usually enough. Additional zones, you can always add them. Jomo asked, electrical, what about old rubber insulation wiring? So it exists some places. If all the switches and outlets work and the panel is okay, I'm not ripping up the walls. You understand that to change wiring, if it's, you hope it's sheetrock house, you got to rip down every single wall and you got to replace that sheetrock. If it's plaster house, and I had one of those, you need to jackhammer through the plaster to change the wiring. So again, everything has to work. If it doesn't work, it needs to be fixed. But I'm not rewiring a house because it has old wiring. If every receptacle is working. Okay, so you need to know your area. That's the truth, right? If higher finishes are required, you got to know that before you start doing work, right? There's a big difference between the houses sell for $400,000 and houses that sell for $800,000. You need to know what you're going to have to put in there. But even in higher end areas, my principle of doing the least amount necessary always holds true. The only question really is what exactly is necessary. So this, you got to be determined by recent sales and other houses that are currently for sale. You have to look at your competition and see what's going on there. But I always look to do as little as you can think and price it accordingly, right? If houses are selling for $800,000 and you're going to take a little bit less of a renovation than you anticipated, put your, if everything's being listed for $799, put your house out for $749. If things are going in the eights, put it out for $799. You want to be priced low. You always want to be priced low. But in order to do that, sometimes you got to do less work than a lot of people anticipate. I'm telling you, the house I showed yesterday, there's no doubt in my mind that people can go out and spend $120,000 on it. It's easy to spend $120,000 on a renovation. There's also no doubt in my mind that I can make that house ready to sell for 40 grand easily. Now, I happen to have low-end suppliers. I have people who will send me, I can do kitchens really cheap. I can do bathrooms really cheap. I have labor pretty cheap, but there's no reason to do everything. And so many people that look at my wholesale properties come to me and give me numbers that are just astronomical. There is no limit to what you can spend on a deal. I really believe that if you look to do less, you'll be a much, much happier person. Now, again, if you're wholesaling to somebody, they may or may not look at it that way. But I got full asking for that house yesterday, so somebody saw it my way. Question from Naman. Sounds like your comp skills are very important here. Of course your comp skills are important here, Naman. You need to look at what your competition is. You need to look at what your comps. I get into pictures. That's why I advocate everyone gets licensed and has access, gets a real estate license, has access to multiple listing service. Multiple listing service is the absolute best way to see what comps are going for, and the best way to really get into see what the finishes need to be done. So I know that Richard asked a question at the beginning. All right. Should we get into that now? Let me go through the rest of it, and then I'll get into your question, Richard. It's a great question. Okay, so this was the outside. So now I'll talk about the ways I can help you. So there's several ways I can help you if you're interested in starting the business or you want to grow the business. I can help you get a great list of prospects to call or text at reduced prices. You can pay what I pay. I can give you a link for that. I can get you probate leads for most of the counties around New York City at reduced prices. I can get you discounts and subscription to PropStream, which is the second best way to comp out properties. If you're not licensed, MLS, multiple listing service is the best. After that is PropStream. I think I'm the only guy who gives a discount on PropStream. I can skip trace lists for you, and I get tier 1 level data, amazing phone numbers. They're so good, it even tells you what 2-hour period each day of the week the phone is most likely to be used. I have VAs with available hours if you're interested, I have them call for you. I use a CRM called RE Simply. It's great. I can get it to you at a discount if you need a CRM. And I have a course that teaches you everything I know. So this course is 9 modules long. There's a 90 to 120-minute webinar for each of the modules. The standard price of the course is $847. It's going up to $1,000 very soon. About 60 people have taken the course already. If you sign up, I can't believe I left July there. August is good too. It's REIA 10 off for 10% off the price. This coupon code ends at the end of August. The course price is definitely going up soon. Just a basic summary of what in the course. The first module is mindset, really how to think for success, how to think about real estate. What's different in New York than all 49 states, and there's a lot on that. I could probably speak for 6 hours just on that topic. The choices you need to make before you start, like where you want to operate, what you want to do. Do you want to wholesale? Do you want to rehab? The fourth is really important. It's marketing and getting leads. The fifth is sales conversion, making offers, what you say to a seller when you get in front of them. The sixth is funding, getting money for your deals. The seventh is rehabbing and wholesaling, which covers some of the things we did today. The eighth is finding buyers, both retail buyers and cash buyers. And the ninth is closing, and there's a bonus module. People had some more questions. Our next meeting is going to be September 3rd. I think that's in 2 weeks from today from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Some free resources. So I have a YouTube channel called Wholesaling and Flipping in New York. There's lots of free content. I basically give away everything, so you can subscribe. I have a Facebook page called LMPK Real Property Buyers. You can get updates on what I'm doing. Every time I do something, I try and post it on there. I'm part of a national mastermind called Investor Fuel. Two of the members are one of them is John Martinez. He is the premier sales trainer for real estate investors. He has a website called MidwestRev.com. He gives away a lot of stuff for free there. Again, he tells you exactly what to say to a seller, and it's completely different than what you would think. And then Mike Hambright he started Investor Fuel. He has a Flip Nerd podcast. I think he did 1,600 podcasts. He's been doing it for like 6 years. And there are people who did their whole business based on that. Everything he says won't work in New York, but it gives you a lot of information. If you haven't signed up for this meetup group, oh boy, I'm sorry. Go to meetup.com/Nassau-County-REIA. You can get updates on all the meetings we're having in the future. Hopefully we'll meet in person soon. And now it's questions and answers. So first I'm going to answer a question from Richard Gibson. How do you get around the non-assignment clause in the standard New York contract? So clause 26 in the New York contract says this is not assignable. A crucial, is after a seller agrees to your price, right? I had a seller today. I think she agreed to my price. I'm hoping she does. As soon as a seller agrees to your price, there are 3 seeds you must plant. Maybe I can stop presenting so you can see me, because I'm making all kinds of hand gestures. Okay, so there are 3 seeds that you need to plant. The 3 plant in a seller's mind to speak to their attorney is, number 1, assignability. The contract has to be assigned if you're going to wholesale it. Now, I made the mistake on a couple of occasions of really pushing assignability when I was planning to close anyway. It's not worth fighting over if you're going to close. And I lost the deal to another guy who didn't care about the assignability. But assuming you're going to wholesale, you have to talk about assignability. You have to talk about the size of the deposit that you probably want to do even if you're closing. And you have to talk about showing the property. So you have to present all three of those. You have to plant all those seeds in a way that it helps the seller. So the way I pose it is, I think I usually send them like a Bonjoro video, which is a quick video, and I talk about these things and I talk about what's going on next. So I go, before you speak to your attorney, first of all, understand the standard deposit in New York is 10%. I say, listen, I'm involved in a lot of transactions. If I had to put 10% down on every one that I hadn't closed on, I'd probably go out of business. So is it okay if I give you $5,000, $10,000? Usually we'd be okay with it. I say, listen, for assignability, I don't propose it that way, but I say to them, I work with a lot of partners, and a lot of these partners are very finicky guys. And they tell me sometimes the day before closing, they want to buy the property in another entity. I need the ability to assign it, or this isn't going to close when it has to. You frame the assignability as helping the investor, helping the seller going to close. So I say, you understand, I need this assignable because I need to be able to move it into another entity so that we can close when you want to. That's how I frame it. And the third thing is showing, and I tell them, listen, I want to start construction on this the day we close. The only way I can get construction going is I have to show this property to a bunch of contractors, and I have potential buyers who are other people who have looked at other houses of mine in the area, and they told me the next property you're doing, I want to see it. I want to get them in here. I need 2 or 3 occasions of a half hour to an hour long where I need to show them. When I frame those things to them, usually it's no problem. Now, it doesn't mean that their attorney, so inevitably, they're not going to have that conversation with their attorney until the attorney sends the contract to my attorney, and my attorney goes, hey, we're only giving $5,000 deposit. We want clause 26 crossed out so it's assignable, and we want to put some wording in an addendum about showing the property. At that point, the attorney calls the seller and says, you want to sell it to these guys? This guy sounds like he's full of shit. That's what usually has happened. Now, if the seller had a conversation with you about it beforehand, the seller will usually say, no problem. And we spoke about it. And then the attorney might go, well, listen, don't do it for 5,000, do it for 10,000. We'll do it for 5%, that kind of thing. That's the size of the deposit is usually negotiated. But when you plant those 3 seeds beforehand, your life becomes so much easier. If you talk to the seller about showing the property, the size of the deposit, and assignability, and he has that, and he remembers any part of that conversation on each of those topics before his attorney calls him and says, who is this jerk that you're selling to? It's a much easier situation. I'm not guaranteeing that that'll work. Attorneys will still try to kill deals, right? But planting those seeds in advance is what helps you get past the issue of the seller's attorney saying, I don't want this guy flipping the deal. I don't know why they care, but that's usually what happens. So that is how you deal with the assignability. You tell the seller in advance, I need the ability to assign so I can close when you want to. That's how you frame it. Any other questions? Oh, Naman. Naman says, can we do in-person quick peeks again? It's too early for that. I'm ready to do it, but I don't know. I'm ready to do a quick peek. I would go see if some properties. It just, maybe we can. Remind me. We have let's do it, you and me. Just you and me, Naman. I'm open to everybody. Richard, with your new list, what types of marketing are you planning to focus on? So when I get a list, Richard, I hit it 4 ways. I mail it, I call it, I text it, and I RVM it. That means drop a ringless voicemail in their box. I pound lists to a bloody pulp because I am a firm believer that everybody has a preferred method of communication, and you need to try each of those. Now, understand, RVM is super cheap. Texting is super cheap. Calling a little more expensive. Mailing is expensive. So that's the only one of those that really costs a lot of money. But I pound it as hard as I can because, I didn't believe RVM would work. I thought it was complete horseshit. I really didn't believe it. And I got some of the strangest people to sell me their house through RVM. I had a guy, I made $70,000 on a deal in, I think it was Massapequa on the water, people that had been living without power or water since Sandy for 6 years. This was 2018, I think. Sandy was in 2012. These are people who don't have a smartphone, who can't get texts. I don't even think they had a mailbox, but they listened to every voicemail on their flip phone. And they sold me the house and I made 70 grand on it. And I have a few other crazy stories about RVMs. So I think you have to, if you have a list that you think is good, you have to pound it in every single way that you can. Again, the only really expensive way to reach that list is mail. The others are not expensive. Joanna asks, so is the due diligence happening before the contract signed? Yes, Joanna. All due diligence has to be done before contract is signed. Every contract I ever went into, and I've gone into maybe 1,000 contracts, I go in hard. I have no way out. There is no inspection contingency in New York. Inspections get done before the contract in New York. Regardless of what you've been told, in 49 other states, you can get an inspection contingency. In New York, a seller's attorney will not write a contract up where you could just walk away. It just won't happen. So all due diligence gets done before the contract signed. Naman asks, what percentage ratio of your past deals have attorneys killed for reasons you mentioned, like assignment clause? Very few. Very few. It happens once in a while, but as I got better and planted the seeds in the seller before they spoke to the attorney, it happened less often. It happened. I mean, there's one that sticks in my craw because the guy sold it to another investor I know for the exact same price as me, and I was fighting over the assignability, even though at the price that I was going to buy it at, I had no way to wholesale it. So it was my stupidity. I'm angry at that because I should have let it go, and that just sticks with me. But it happens. You get difficult attorneys, and the seller is usually going to trust his attorney more than he's going to trust you, and that, I guess that makes sense. But I usually get around the whole attorney thing. Mark Green, are the RVM laws in New York still very gray versus robocalls? I don't know of any RVM laws in New York. The only state I know that made RVMs illegal is Florida. There might be others, but I don't believe I'm in trouble making RVM calls. Shakespeare asks, how do you list properties that you decide not wholesale? I don't understand the question, Shakespeare. Please elaborate. I'm a licensed broker, so I became a broker to list my own properties. But I also realized that if you go on enough appointments, you are absolutely going to come into contact with people who should be listing or who want to list. So I have literally gone on an appointment where I thought I qualified, or my lead manager qualified the prospect and said, we want to buy your house. And I got there and they said, we want to list it. Where do we sign? That happens. Now, if you're not a licensed real estate person, you're just going to walk out of that. And this idea that you're going to refer them to somebody sounds like crap to me. So I tell people all the time, I do two things. I buy houses that need work and I sell them. And I'm also a traditional realtor. And I have said on over 100 occasions, I've gone into a house. I went into a house today that I made an offer on. And I said, you should not sell this to me or any other investor. I go, you should list it. I go, if you sell it to me, you're going to leave $100,000 on the table. And she still wants to list it. I don't know. She still wants to sell it to me. Now, I don't know why. There could be all kinds of things that she's not telling me. But I've said that on over 100 occasions. And I believe you should do what's best for the client, right? You go into a house that's in perfect shape and they're not in a rush, or at least they say they're not in a rush. Let them list it. What's the difference? So I'll take that listing. But I have a full-time disposition manager who works for me, who will do the open houses and deal with the buyers, deal with all the schmucks that call. I don't have to deal with that, right? But if I was in this business alone, I would absolutely get licensed. I would take those listings and maybe co-broker them with someone who would do the work and split the commission with them or take a percentage. It's just free money, right? If you go on enough appointments, there's listings out there. And the idea that you're going to somehow convince somebody who was going to list it, who wasn't going to list it to list it is ridiculous. Let's be honest. 90% of the properties in the country are going to go through a traditional realtor on multiple listing service. The idea that the person never thought about that is lunacy. Now, I always push away, right? Every property that when they want to sell to me, I go, listen, why don't you just list it? Why don't you just keep it? Why don't you rent it? You want to find out what your competition is, and you want to find out if they have serious motivation or not. So Shakespeare, I don't know what you mean. How do you list properties? I guess you meant, so I'm a realtor, so I'll list properties, but you can even list properties that you wholesale. That's another reason to become licensed, right? If the situation calls for it, you are absolutely 100% allowed to list a property that you don't own, as long as you don't represent that you own it. You have to list it that you are the contract vendee. That means you're in contract, and you have to put on it that it's for an investor. But I cleared that with LIBOR with our real estate board. It's 100% legal here. So I have listed, by the way, it's the absolute best way to build a cash buyers list, and the absolute best way to get the most for a property is to list it on MLS. Now, you can't do it in every situation. If the buyer lives there, if the seller lives there, you probably can't do it. It depends on the situation. But if the situation calls for it, you absolutely should list it on the multiple listing service, a wholesale property. But again, you can't represent that you own it. That's the key part. Any other questions? I think we're done with questions. It's not even 7 o'clock. Anything? Oh, Shakespeare. Sorry for the typo. I was asking about the properties that you wholesale. I'm interested in houses that you sell that need work. I just got licensed 2 weeks ago. Okay. So I have a system that I work on when I have a wholesale property. It's just like a 4 or 5 step system. So the first people that see my deals are people that bought from me before. If you bought from me before, you're on a preferred list. You get to see my properties first. The second set of people that see my properties are the people that have expressed an interest in a specific city, which is why I always ask my buyers list, what cities do you want to buy in? Inevitably, 80 to 90% of the buyers will give the same dumbass answer. I buy anywhere I can make money. I don't care where it is. Stupid answers. Sometimes it indicates that they're really not real buyers. But if you tell me you like Seaford, and I get something in Seaford, you're going to see that pretty quick. So that's the second group. The third group is my entire buyers list. They'll get it, right? I'll text it to them or I'll email it to them, whatever their preferred method of communication is. Sometimes I'll even call. If I can't find a buyer then, I'll send it to my realtor list. I have a list of about 1,800 realtors. I hate sending the list out to that because it usually ends up in people trying to daisy chain me and advertising it on some. I got a deal last time. Someone sent me my own deal from a guy in Utah. So I hate that. And the last step is I'll put it on MLS if I really need to. Naman asks, why not blast your whole list right away regardless of buyer? I want to reward the people who bought from me, right? I have a couple of guys who bought multiple deals from me. And I want them to get first dibs. I want them to feel special because they, I have a guy who bought a dozen properties from me in the last 12 months. He should get first crack out on it, and it's easier because I know he's real. I know he has the money, and if he wants it, and he's going to give me what I'm asking for it. Now, if he won't give me what I'm asking for it, then I'm not going to accept it. But I don't always blast it out. Maybe I should, but I feel like it's a better way. When I do that, let me tell you what happens. A lot of my buyers are saying to me things like, I'm only seeing one deal from you a month. You say you're doing 2. And I go, yeah, you're not seeing the other one that the guy who keeps buying from me buys. So I want to cause the buyers to want to buy from me. And I think that works a little bit. So I might be wrong. It's a good question. Any other questions? We're right at 7 o'clock, but I'll stay for another half hour, even though I'm hungry. Any other questions? And you can ask about anything, again, anything. I'm a complete open book. I will. When are we getting steaks? Yeah, Naman, you owe me some steaks. I'm ready to go tomorrow night. Not tomorrow night, Monday night. Richard Gibson, what's your target wholesale fee? I average about $30,000. I average about 30. It really depends. If I can get something cheap, I've made $120,000 on a wholesale fee. I went into contract on a house for $500. I quickly realized there were people who would pay $625 for it, and I wholesaled it in. But when I target $25,000 to $30,000. I average about 30 on wholesales. We're in an area where you can do that. It's one of the best parts about being in New York. There are a lot of challenges in New York, but one of the best parts is how much you make on wholesaling. I have a lot of friends who are in Dallas and Phoenix and Vegas. These guys make $8,000 per wholesale fee. They have an easier time getting into contract, but they got to do 3 to 4 times as many deals to make the same amount of money as I do. Do you ever purchase a wholesale if you cannot sell the contract? So when I go into a deal, I am going to either assign the contract or I am going to close on the deal, right? So let's take yesterday. So ideally, I'm buying something where I have 3 options, right? The best deals have 3 options to them. I'm buying it cheap enough that I believe I can wholesale it. Now, sometimes I'm wrong, or sometimes circumstances make me wrong. This deal in Mastic that I'm rehabbing, I thought it was a great wholesale deal, but the seller would not let me in, and I could not show it, and people were just not into it. So I closed on it. I'm doing the rehab myself, and I'm going to do fine on it. In fact, I'm going to contract on it now, and I'm going to do great on it. So ideally, I have three options. Ideally, I can buy it cheap enough that I can wholesale it to somebody else to rehab. Ideally, I can wholesale it. So that really depends on the condition. So if it's an REO or if it's a real junker, if it's really bad, you can't wholesale it. But if it's somewhat salvageable, I could do minimal work to it, and then I can sell it cheap and do okay. And then my other option is do major work to it and rehab it. Ideally, you buy cheap enough where you have those three options. But every deal I go into, unless there's a title issue, I know I'm either going to assign or I'm going to close. Every single deal. And I know that's not what you see on the internet, where people promise you wholesaling is great because you put a 2-week inspection contingency on it, and if you can't find a buyer, then bye-bye contract. That's just not how it works in New York. So you got to do your due diligence. I know my deals. I know the numbers. You learn it over time. I bought a deal recently in West Hempstead for $450. I knew I couldn't wholesale it, but I found the buyer 2 days later for $575 without touching it. But I knew that was a deal. I mean, that's years and years of knowing. So you could say I got lucky on it, but when you work in it, you figure out numbers. You got to know your numbers before you get into it, because there's no way out of your contract. What else? Crap. Okay. What are some of the biggest pain points for your buyers? The biggest pain points for my buyers? I'm not sure what you mean. Like, sure, ask. Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably easier this way. Because like I'm working on something, or it's kind of a platform for hard money lenders, and we're looking for ways to kind of to accelerate the sales process timeline, as well as kind of add value to multiple people along the way. And one of the things that we've been hearing from some of the flippers is that to de-risk the property is by finding financing before they actually put it under contract. So our thought process behind that was, hey, if we partner up with the wholesalers to get interested financing basically on the deal before you market it, that you can then charge a little bit more than what you would normally be able to sell the property for.
I don't think so, unless you were offering something that the buyer didn't have. Most buyers have financing lined up before they come. So to say, hey, this thing is ready to go, it's on a plate for you, pay me more, I don't think so. The main pain points, I would say, the buyers are finding enough deals. That's their big thing. But it could be, sometimes it's a function of these guys being complete idiots. Like I told you, like I showed this house yesterday in Locust Valley, 15 West 5th Street. It could be a great house for 60 grand. If you want to do an amazing job, 70 grand. These guys came in and told me they want to spend 120 grand. If you're telling me that, you don't know how to do a rehab. There's guys who don't know how to do rehabs. So, it's going to be hard for him to find deals. That's the truth. He may have passed on 100 deals that could have been great, but because he's getting retail pricing on renovations. So I find it's very rare, unless you're somebody new, that you don't have financing lined up. Now, having said that, we had a guest on, Steve Moskowitz, who's doing something that most people aren't. So there are people out there who want to do their first deal, and they can't get it because either they have a credit issue or they can't show experience. And I would say 95% of the lenders out there, if your credit isn't strong and you can't show experience, are not going to lend to you. So Steve is somebody who can help you with that. In that case, you could say, you can appeal to first time rehabbers, and there's a lot of first time rehabbers out there. But short of that, what I find is that most guys have their fine, at least in their mind. They're not looking and have no clue as to where they're getting their hard money from. I haven't seen it. I mean, I've had people who came to me, show me a pre-approval letter, and then the guy flaked out on them. That happened to me recently in Florida, where I thought I was going to keep this guy's deposit, and then he got it. But at least this guy thought he had financing from somebody when he came to me. He didn't come. They don't come naked. They either come with the cash or with somebody who's going to lend them. That's what I found.
Yeah, and it's I guess it's not really the like having access to financing, but having a bunch of the work already done before you market the property. So say you know it's already having like an ARV appraisal done, already have a 60 to 70% of the work that they do once they put it under contract after the fact. So instead of selling in say 7 to 10 days or closing in 7 to 10 days, you can close within 3 to 4 days after you like have a signed contract is with somebody.
So a couple things. Those things don't apply in New York. Nobody's closing in 7 days. No one's closing in 4 days, right? It's just not how the psyche works in New York. Everything takes forever here. Every transaction, a quick wholesale deal for me is a couple months. That's the truth.
Okay.
Everything takes forever, right? It's just the way what happens when attorneys get involved. There's 4 attorneys, the seller's attorney, and if they're getting financing, there's a lender's attorney. And these guys are not getting anything done in 3 days. They're not getting anything done in 7 days. Everything is slow. And I don't think from a buyer's perspective, closing much quicker is a selling point. I think that probably scare the shit out of a lot of buyers, saying you can close in 3 days. A lot of these guys, they're thinking this could take a couple of weeks, and I've closed deals in a couple of weeks, but they're not that interested in speed. So I don't know if it's a selling point. And I feel like a lot of them wouldn't even understand that the appraisal's done already. Like I don't know. Maybe you might be right, but I haven't seen that being expressed to me from buyers. Naman asks, how's the seller's conversation going on the recent deal? Are they? Let me mute you, Shakespeare. Are people allowing the house? I would say 98% of the people are allowing me in the house. Today I went into an appointment with a mask, and she told me you could take it off, so I did. I'm fine with that. Most people are not scared. Older people still are scared. I have a few leads that told me they really wanted to sell me their house, but they are not letting anybody in. It happens, but Naman, stop worrying about things you can't control. Don't worry about them. Joanna asks, thoughts on wholesaling off the MLS? I'd say it's a very, 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 very difficult thing to do for a few reasons. First of all, it's hard to find a really good deal on the MLS. But let's say you found a great deal. So I'm just going to throw out numbers. I had a situation like this. House was for sale for $300, and I wanted to pay, I think it was $240, and I saw that it was occupied, and people weren't getting in to see it, and I forgot how I got the deal. I didn't even know it was on MLS at first, and I offered her $240, and she said okay. And then I realized I wanted a wholesale, let's say at $270. The problem is that people are going to see 99% of the people that are going to Google the property are going to see what they were asking for it. And when they see it on the MLS, they feel like you're trying to sell me a pile of shit that I could have found myself. So a vast majority, first of all, I tell sellers right away, if they tell me the property is listed, I go, it's very unlikely we're going to do business, right? I say that right from the start. I go, if you listed it, because let's think about it. 2 things. First of all, they have an anchored price in their mind that they thought they were going to get or close to it, and you're probably not going to be able to pay that. And second of all, it's out there for everyone to see. So if it really was a deal, unless it went out a minute ago, it's very hard. Now, you can wholesale properties and rehab properties off the MLS here and there, but I bought something in Valley Stream. I saw it come out. It was $300,000. I told the guy, I don't want anyone to see it. I'll pay you $300. I bought it, did nothing to it, and sold it for 400. That can happen. But wholesaling, Joanna, almost impossible for a variety of reasons. And again, I tell sellers all the time, they tell me it's listed, I go, we are probably not going to be able to do business. But talk to me about why you think I can help you. Any other questions? Shakespeare, you got something? No? Thought you did.
Yeah, Mike. So like, how can we get our feet in the door as new investors? Like, you mentioned that, like, for now, you sell primarily to previous buyers.
No.
So
by the way, most of my deals don't end up going to the previous buyers, right? I have a buyer, the guy who bought 12 deals from me, he only likes Southwest Nassau, right? He only likes Valley Stream and Elmont and Franklin Square. That's it. I had this deal in Locust Valley that I showed yesterday. He don't even know where the hell that is. He's not interested in that. And I have guys who only do South Shore, like they only do Seaford and Wantagh, and like they're not. My previous buyers usually are very specific about where they want to buy and what. Everybody's got their own bullshit, and even guys who bought before, a lot of them get tapped out. You know, some of these guys only do 1-2 deals a year. If they're busy doing a deal, they're not going to buy from me. So I show it to them first, but most of them, they say, you know, it's not for me, or they give me a price that's so low, I say I can't do it. So I put out my deal. I would say 95% of my deals go to the whole buyers list to at least be shown. Sometimes one of my people who saw it first will end up buying it from me, but that's just the order in which I show it. But everybody's got their own things that they like, they don't like. I have guys who won't buy in a flood zone. I have guys who only buy in the North Shore. Everybody's got their own things. There's a million buyers out there. It's not believe me, if you want to buy, like I said, anybody can become a rehabber tomorrow and make $100,000 part-time over the next year. As long as you have the cash, you need money, right? You need $100,000 to do a deal because you need 20% of the purchase price. You need closing costs. You need money to start the construction. You need money for monthly payments. You need money. But if you have that money or you can get that money, then you can start rehabbing right away. Deborah asks, do you still buy houses through auctions? I don't. Do you still find good deals there? I don't know. I don't even want to know, Deborah, to be honest with you. I went to Tuesday, on every single Tuesday for 4 years, I went to the Nassau County auction. I can tell you, Chris, but I'm muting you for a second. You can't control what you do there. The way the auctions work are there are 2 vendors who sell you the list of properties that are scheduled to be auctioned on Tuesday. They sell it to you on Thursday. So you get a list, and it's a massive list. It's tremendous. And 75% of that list doesn't even show up on Tuesday. And then the ones that do, even if you're happy and it comes up, the bank has an upset price, which is the minimum they'll take. That could be $300,000 more than you wanted to buy. And then even better, the bank's upset price is lower and you bid and some guy outbids you by $50,000. To me, everybody should go to an auction and see how it works once, but it's not a recipe for a predictable business. I mean, you can't control how much you're going to buy there. So it's nice to see, but I have no interest in going back there. I was spending 2 out of 5 days a week on doing research for the auction and being at the auction. And I should have stopped a long time before that because I couldn't scale the business. I mean, I didn't know I don't know if I was going to buy anything for months. Right? You never know what you're going to buy there, and it's very hard. There's a lot more people there. When I started going, there was like 50 people there. Now there's like 500 people there. And when I went there and there was 50 people there, all the old timers said that, oh, this is crazy. Used to be just the 4 of us, and we used to decide, you take that one, you take that one. So I sound like an old timer now, but I'm not interested in going back to the auctions. Shakespeare, I'm going to unmute you. I think you have a question.
No, you covered it. Thank you.
Oh, okay, no problem. Any other questions? I'll give it 2 minutes if you want to type it or you want to unmute yourself. You can ask anything. I am an open book, but only for a few more minutes because I'm starving. We'll give it till We'll give it 2 more minutes. Any questions will be answered, but if there's no questions in 2 minutes, I'm going to end the meeting. Oh, Joanna asked, best way to market and prepare for September when moratoriums are lifted. What do you mean, the eviction moratoriums or the payment moratoriums? Both. I would market exactly the same way you would market no matter what was going on. Like I said, I haven't really done any much marketing. I've been calling a bunch of cruddy lists, but I'm gonna go super hard into marketing as soon as I can. As soon as I get that data, which I'm supposed to get before the end of the month, I am going to pound it to a pulp. Same way you market all the time. Doesn't matter. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot more deals. Naman asks, from now until the end of the year, what's your monthly goals? How many deals per month? Listen, I'd love to do. I got to make up for a bunch of crappy months, so I'd love to do 6 deals a month in August, September, October. Even if I did 6 deals a month, I wouldn't make up for all those months I lost. But I'm not really doing monthly goals. I'm really just trying to start marketing, get the pipeline going again. I've been very fortunate lately to get deals without spending money. It's been great. Joanna, where are you getting your current leads? I told you I don't have any real current leads. My current leads are SEO leads, people that found me on the internet, JV leads from students of mine that brought me deals. I'm looking at these deals. A lot of JV deals up here, and really older leads, leads that I had been following up with for a long time that now decided they want to sell. Some lady called me today. I had her dead. She told me she wasn't interested. Today she called me. She goes, I got to get the F out of New York. Come over and give me a number. I got to give her a number. I didn't give her a number. But she told me what she wants. Richard Gibson, do you tend to do deals all through winter? Yeah. This is not a seasonal business. That's bullshit. I mean, you can definitely buy deals from people in the winter for sure. The truth is, you can sell deals in the winter. I've sold deals in the snow. It's no problem. Are there less showings when the weather is freezing cold and snowing? Yes. People even that want a house will say, "Oh, we got to go through the snow." But this is a 12-month-a-year business. The seasonality is the seasonality of the whole national real estate market is irrelevant to you and your 1 or 2 deals that you're looking to sell at any point. So, yes, we do deals during the winter for sure. Naman, are you still using that proprietary data from the guy out west? Yes, I am. I am using that deal. Deborah Rush Murphy, what's the best way to get started? If you want to get started wholesaling, the best way is to buy a list. And I have a link where you can save some money and get a good list. And then first you need to decide where you want to operate. Buy a list and skip trace the list. And then call on your cell phone using Google Voice so they don't know your cell phone number, and text using Google Voice on your cell phone. And it's free. You don't pay anything for it. So you have to pay some money for the list and for the skip tracing, somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500, a one-time thing. That list and that data should last you at least 6 months, even if you're calling it and texting it pretty hard. And that's how you get started. You're going to call 10,000 people, and you're going to get told to go fuck yourself 9,000 times, and you're going to get told to die in a fire. I was told recently to die in a fire. You're going to be called a complete asshole, a opportunist, prick. I've been called a lot of things, but you're going to develop enough of a confidence after you get told that so many times that you're going to realize who's a real lead and who's not, and you're going to be able to talk to sellers and try and help them, right? Our job as wholesalers and real estate investors is to help people. If we can't help people, then we are useless. And when you realize that you are talking to people and trying to discover if they have a problem that you can solve, then this gets much easier when you realize that you're just trying to help people. And that is the truth. So you need to get a good size list. You can't start with people tell me I got a list of 200. I mean, that's ridiculous. You need a decent sample size. I'd say 10,000 is a good number to work around. It's 9,000, 8,000, still something. Richard Gibbons says drive for dollars. I don't drive for dollars. I had a period of time where I got the Deal Machine app, and I had a bunch of people driving for dollars. I got 600 driving for dollars leads, and not one was a deal. Because I find in our area that most properties that look terrible from the outside or are condemned fall into one of four categories. They are either already bank owned, which is not a deal anymore for you, bought by an investor, either from the bank, not a deal for you anymore, it's completely underwater, like I'm talking about, $1 million on a $400,000 house. So if you want to try and work a short sale, good luck. Or they're a reverse mortgage situation, and that is a difficult situation to be in. Now, driving for dollars can result in hitting a grand slam home run deal. You can hit a six-figure deal if the property has no mortgage, so there's no lender involved, the owner dies, and you can contact the heirs. If that happens, that's the trifecta. Then you can hit a home run or a grand slam, because you find an heir who lives out of state, and you say, hey, this property, what do you know about it? Oh, it was my father's, he died, and which if I can, I think I can get through the legal crap, but if I give you $10,000, is this something that works? That could be a home run deal. But you need a lot of factors involved, and after you see these houses, you need to do the research online, which in Nassau is super easy to see who owns it, how much was owed on it, was it in foreclosure, what's the story. That you got to do that data. So I started showing people who were driving for dollars how to do this research on their own, and of course they're all a bunch of lazy jerks, and none of them wanted to do that. So they just wanted to take a picture and bill me every time a postcard went out. So it has some value, but only if it meets those criteria, right? It can't be a loan on it. That already makes it unlikely to work. The money asked about short sales. So short sales work, but if a house is condemned for 9 years, short sale becomes much more difficult. Everything becomes more difficult, right? The condition of the property is probably much worse. And then the money owed, right? Interest accrues all the time on these properties. Mark Green asks, how would you suggest scaling capital, hard money loans, private capital, etc.? So, I mean, for many years, I took hard money on every deal, and I took private money on the deal for the gap. It's what I thought I needed to do at the time. I would not recommend doing that now, because on every deal after it closed, I wrote a big fat freaking check to the hard money lender for his interest, and then I had to split the profits with some other guy. And it was not great. Now, it's what I did. I got started, and I made good money and made more money every year for 5 years. But if you can get private money that can fund the whole deal, that's a much better situation. Mark, I think you're in an area in Iowa where, deals are smaller. If that's the case, you can definitely get private money to fund the whole deal. Here, it's a little more complicated, right? You might need $400,000 or $500,000 into a deal. But if you can get private money to fund the whole deal, that is a better situation than taking a hard money loan and getting private money. Shakespeare asking, can you talk a little bit more about PropStream and how it works? What is the cost if we go through you? So it's the same $97 if you go through me, but if you keep it for 3 months, I send you back 10% of your cost. So it's like $87 or something. That's how it works. I have what's my link? RE Data Now. You get a 7-day free trial. You can play around with it for 7 days. RE Data Now. Let me put that in here. REData.com. No. PropStream is the second best way to comp out properties. It's not as good as MLS, but it's close. It used to not be as good. They got much better. But the advantage of PropStream is that you can get lists of potential sellers from it and lists of potential buyers. They'll give you $10,000 a month for that $97. So it has additional value. But I would say anybody in our business, if you're not licensed, should have a PropStream account. One or the other. You cannot use Zillow and Trulia to figure out values. That is just asking for trouble, right? That might work in in Port St. Lucie, Florida, where the range of houses is 100,000 to 140,000. But here, where you miss a school district, you go in Massapequa from Amityville School District to Plain Edge School District, could be $150,000 difference. So you got to use some data that actually is valuable. Anything else? I'll give it another 4 minutes, then I'm hanging up on you guys no matter what. Like I said, I'm starving. We'll go to 7:30, but that's it. But if no questions, we can end at 7:28. But it's up to you. I am answering any and all questions. Let me know if we're done, I'll give it another 90 seconds. Type or unmute yourself if you want to talk. I'm happy to hear you. Oh, if anybody's interested in the course, I didn't give you the link for it. Oh, no one asked for it. What is it? How to we'll give it another minute. Any questions? Anything? Nothing? All right. Give it another 30 seconds, then we will end this. I think we're done. Okay, I'm calling it. Time of death, 7:27. So we're back in 2 weeks. If anybody has any questions, let me know. You are welcome. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I think I'll put my phone number in here if you want to call. I mean, like I said, you can call me. Office number. I wish I could type. That's my phone number if anybody wants. And thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. We're going to keep this format at 6 p.m., 7:30 p.m. I think it's better. I was foolish by doing it at 4 o'clock. I thought we were back in COVID, everybody was home, but now people are back to work. So, Naman, maybe we'll do a sneak peek at one of the properties I'm working on. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.